Hi, Pete Malinverni here again, Chair of Jazz Studies at Purchase College and co-curator along with PAC Director Seth Soloway of the Jazz at the Center series. We're on pause now, of course, but we do hope to be mounting a season for you before too long. We'll keep you posted. Meanwhile, we're doing this series called What's Going On Up There? And it's a look behind the curtain sort of at what we do as jazz musicians when we're in performance. Of course, as we said last time, jazz musicians have to be composers and performers at the same time. And so we have to have a good handle on the various elements of music and how to employ them in order to express and evoke human emotion. That's really all it's about. We talked about melody and how that was the element of music that really gets to one's heart, how a lovely melody can really tug at the heartstrings. Well, today we're going to talk about rhythm, which I think affects the part of the body that's maybe a little lower, that makes us want to move when we hear music. Rhythm can be the kind of thing that really gets you up on the floor dancing, or gets you marching, or just makes you feel real good. For myself, I feel rhythm in a very strong way, no matter the genre of music. If I'm listening to Bach or Puccini or Beethoven, I'm that guy you see at Lincoln Center bobbing his head or feeling good with the music, where everyone else is somehow successful at resisting the impulse. But certainly as a jazz musician, everybody feels the music and is encouraged to do so and to move as you will. Okay, so to rhythm. We're going to look at rhythm as, we're going to split it up a little bit. First we're going to talk about meter. All right, so now I have my trusty metronome that I've had since I was a kid, and I'm going to listen to this, okay? Okay, you heard one click. Doesn't mean anything, it's just noise. However, if I let it run, now we know how often the clicks are going to come. Right? Those are now pulses, those are beats. But that's not enough. Now we have to organize those pulses and beats and put them into measures, right? This is a meter. Right? So we can have duple meter so that we accent every other beat. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That works in marching, right? Because obviously, you know, most marchers have 2 feet, a left and a right. 1, 2, 1, 2, right? And that's the way we all stay together if we're marching. Also, many dance forms, you know, are left, right, left, right, left, right, and with all the beautiful other stuff that goes on in a dance, right? What is the song? Dancing is making love to music, right? Well, left, right, left, right. But there's also triple meter. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That is also, we associate that with a dance too, but more the waltz, right? So you might hear, 1, 2, 3. And so on. Moon River, of course, right? Henry Mancini's great too. That has a more of a wistful kind of a feeling to it, I think, which is really apropos of its use in Breakfast at Tiffany's. So that's meter. Now, there's one other thing we have with meter. Sometimes we have what's called a compound meter, right? Where we'll take one grouping, say a triple meter, and then we'll follow it with a duple meter. So it's the same pulses. Listen. Except it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. That's weird, right? It's in 5. How can you enjoy anything that's got that odd meter to it? Well, how about this? 1, 2, 3, 4. famous Take 5, recorded by Dave Brubeck's quartet, written by Paul Desmond. That's on a record called Time Out, which is all tunes with complex composite meters. It's really interesting when you think about it that this that was one of the best-selling jazz records of all time, and yet it's all these funny meters that we would think would maybe make us off balance. But instead, I think in the hands of that great quartet, it gives us more of a feeling of jauntiness, you know, that 4/5 1 2 3 4/5 1 2 3. It has a nice feeling to it, and I can't tell you how many times I've had that requested. People just like it. Okay, so that's meter. Now tempo. Raise your hand if you've ever been to a Jewish or Italian wedding. Yeah, right? I've been to them, I've played at them, right? And they're a blast. But there's one thing in both that always is, I think, the most fun, and that is a hora or a tarantella. And both of those things are characterized by, at the end of them, what do? They speed up. So that if you're in a certain tempo means time, by the way, speed. If you're at this speed, and little by little, we get faster. Well, you can imagine, right? It's a wonderful thing. And that's the use of rhythm, and in this case, tempo, to get more exciting. And so very often in jazz music, and a performance will end, or really in a classical piece, you know, if you're listening to an orchestral piece, a symphony, the last movement or the last tune we play on a set in jazz music is usually a little bit brighter. It leaves people with a lift, right? And they can go off into the night, or they can come back after our intermission having had a little fun and then had a moment to rest. The orchestra, the band goes off, they have their glass of water, whatever, get ready to come back and play for you again. So if I play, for example, the tune How High the Moon, and I play it as a ballad or slow, it has a certain feeling, right? But if I play it up tempo, and so on, it has a different feeling entirely, right? All it is tempo, just playing it faster. Now that brings us to the final thing about rhythm, and this is really, to me, this is a fun one. This is the place where we really get to get in and sort of put our own rhythmic fingerprints on something, and that is rhythmic feel. So we talked about a pulse, right? We talked about, let's say, all right, there's a pulse. So if we call that duple, 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2, right? We subdivide those beats. So instead of 1 2 1 2 or 1 2 3 4, we subdivide them and put an and in between. So instead of 1 2 3 4, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the ands are upbeats, right? If we play those evenly, as even eighth notes or even sixteenths or however the meter is, then it has a certain feeling to it. If we put what's called a jazz feel on those subdivisions, it has an entirely different feel. The jazz feel is you take those eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? and you make the first one a little longer than the second. It still has to finish by here, but instead of 1 and, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and da da da. So it has like a lope to it, right? So instead of that, those even 1 and 2, it'd be right. That's a jazz feeling, the long short of the eighth note. If you listen to a Latin band, they have a clave beat going under the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's right? So let's take How High the Moon, and I'll play it in a swing kind of a feeling. I'll improvise. Long, short, long, short, long, short. Well, if I'm going to put that clave beat under it, right? So that's a different kind of a feeling. Now, you can do this with any genre of music. Change the feel, and everything changes. So let's take a look at this. This is from the Well-Tempered Clavier by Johann Sebastian Bach. This is the 5th prelude of Book 1. It's in D major. And it sounds like this. You've heard it. Right? You've heard it. Da, 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 da. Those eighth notes, 16ths in this case, are really split evenly. What if I put a long short thing on it? Right? What if I put a clave beat under it? Different feel entirely. So these are the rhythmic concepts we have to think about when we're engaged in a jazz performance. Because by definition in jazz music, we know about all these choices and we have to make them. Right? So what they say with great whatever it is comes great with great freedom comes great responsibility. Well, it's true. Jazz musicians, we are free, but that makes it more incumbent upon us to really understand all the facets of each of the elements of music and to employ them as well as we can. Anyway, I want to thank you very much for joining me for this second installment of What's Going On Up There, as we've talked about rhythm. Next time we'll talk about harmony. I hope you're all well, and I hope you stay that way. Thanks so much.